Hey y'all, thanks for tuning into another video. So this video is about anxiety. So how do we trust our gut when we're anxious? And trust me, I've had my fair share of anxiety. I've had anxious episodes, panic attacks, and the like for about 10 years in my 20s and went on a healing journey through that. And now I am able to regulate that anxiety based on my logic and my emotion coming together and really understanding the anxiety more. But something that was the hardest for me to overcome was, how do I trust my gut when I'm anxious? And so people would be like, well, just trust your gut, trust your intuition. I'm like, how do I know if it's intuition or overthinking? So I overthought about the ability to trust my intuition. And the reality is that's what we do when we're anxious, right? We don't know what our gut says because our anxiety talks so loudly that we can't determine which one is which. We don't know the difference between our gut instincts and our anxious overthinking. The way that a real big indicator, and the way you know this to be true is this, right? So if something is dangerous, if you were in danger, like let's say, for instance, I'm using this as an example because it actually happened to me. Let's say, for instance, you're on a hike and you see a mountain lion in the woods. You are going to immediately react to that imminent danger because you don't have time to think. Thinking could cost you your life. So what do I know? I know I can't run because he's going to chase me. I know I need to not make loud noises. I know that it's dark and he can still see me moving, so that I need to go to a place where it's well lit. I need to walk slowly. There are all these things that you say in your brain that you need to do, and those are your instincts and your intuition. So because anxiety is that overthinking that tells us that everything is a danger, and everything is going to cause something negative to happen or a negative experience to occur in our lives, we're not trusting our gut in those spaces because we're able to sit and overthink all of the possibilities of danger that could happen on this other side. And because of that, you know that there's no real imminent danger. If you have the ability and the time to think about what you're going to do, then there's no imminent danger right now if you're not acting in an instinctual way, right? The danger isn't right here. If you're in a space where you can think about it, then you aren't in danger in the present moment. And perhaps the more you think, the more dangers you are creating that don't even exist, right? So if I would have thought about that in the space where the mountain lion was, there would have been a ton of other things. I would have thought about the other animals that are maybe there. There would have been a ton of other things that I would have processed in my brain. I'd have time to think. I had to move and be in action. And so anxiety is overthinking when there is no present danger. And because of that, you know that if you have the time to sit and think, then you're not in any real danger. And if you have the time to sit and think, what you're probably doing is with your emotions trying to create logic that isn't even there. The trick is that you cannot will your anxiety away. We wish that were true, but that's really oppressing the anxiety. It's saying, I don't have anxiety anymore, pushing it down when you actually do. So you can't just will it away, but you can trick yourself, because this is all a psychological thing. You can trick yourself into understanding the difference between real danger and danger that's created in your own mind. And the way that you do that is to develop a trust for yourself and to develop a trust for God. Because here's the thing: anxiety at its core is fear. Fear can be overcome by trust. So if I fear the things that anxiety are telling me to be true, if I trust me and I trust God, then I don't trust the fear. And so the way to combat these things is to become stronger in your trust, not to will away the fear, because the fear doesn't just go away. It's like, when a child is afraid of the dark, I think the knee-jerk reaction might be to say, there's nothing in the dark. The dark, like, start talking about the dark, start talking about the thing that they're afraid of. But what I've found to be true is that the trust will overcome the fear. So trust yourself to be able to get out of the situation if there is danger. If you see danger, you know where to run to. Trust me to protect you. I've protected you thus far. Trust God that he's not going to let anything happen to you in your sleep. Let's say prayers. So we're trying to build the capacity of your trust, not trying to diminish the fear, because the only thing that's truly going to do that is a greater sense of trust. So how? You have to write these things down. I'm telling you, it was a game changer for me. When you trust that you can make a decision, your anxiety will lessen. So write down all the decisions that you've made that have turned out in a positive light. That means that when you have a space where you're trying to trust your discernment and you're trying to trust your internal intuition, you're going to be able to tap into all of those times where you were right. And I'm telling you, there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between sitting in that anxiety and frantically trying to figure out what to do, and sitting in a space where you're like, you know what? I know that to be true. Like, I've done this before and I know that to be true. I'm just going to trust what my intuition is telling me, because I can make a decision. And when you write it down, you're able to see on paper all of the great decisions that you've made that you never thought that you would be able to. So that's the first thing. Get yourself to a space where you can trust yourself to make a decision. How do we do that? We're going to write it down, and we're going to write down every decision that we can think of that we have made a good decision on. If it's a decision that maybe wasn't the right decision in the beginning, but it taught you a valuable lesson, put it on there, because you still made a decision that was able to, maybe it wasn't the best decision in feeling, but it was the best decision in lesson. The second thing is, you have to be able to, and write this one down too, trust that you know what is right. And the way that you write this one down is, you write down all the times where you were right. And I'm not talking about an arguing where you were trying to get somebody to see your side. I'm talking about I made this choice, I was right. I said this thing, I was right. I predicted this would happen, which is really just trusting my intuition, and I was right. You're going to make a list of all those things. Why? Because when you're in a space where you're having a hard time making a decision, the way that you can trust yourself is to lean on your past. I was right then, I'm right now. I was right then, I'm right now. And this is not, again, not something that's fueling your argument with somebody else. It's fueling your argument with yourself. It's the argument that you're having between trust and fear. And that's what you're trying to negotiate with. And so how do you do that? You rely back on your past. So you say, I was right then, so I'm right now. Look at this time where I was right, and I know that I'm right now. And you just keep doing that. And then, if we're looking at that in instances of life, it's like when you knew that when you got in that relationship, that person wasn't going to be for you and it was going to end poorly, no matter what you dealt with through the relationship. But when you knew that, you were right. So write that down. I knew this person was not going to be good for me, and I was right. I knew that my kid was going to get hurt when they went on that, that monkey bar because they didn't have the skill. I was right. I knew that when this person got court orders to pay child support, they weren't going to pay it, and I was right. I knew I had to collect, ammunition for the next court date because they weren't going to do it, right? Like all the times that you were right. I knew this restaurant was going to be good, and I was right. Like, this is how you build trust in yourself. The first one is to build trust in the fact that you can make a decision that's a good decision. The second one is to build trust in yourself that those decisions are good. And the last one is, and it's not really the last one because there's a bonus, but the last one is to write down the times that you did this, right? So I can do this, even if it's one step at a time. What's something that you did, even if it was one step at a time? For me, something that I completely negated the impact of, or even the complexity of, was the fact that I never stopped going to school, even though I got pregnant when I was 18. So I was up in a speech and communications class giving those public speeches in front of the room at 8 and 9 months pregnant, because I refused to stop going to school. Had my baby, went right back to school in August, and just kept going. I never stopped going to school. Well, when I was in it didn't seem like a big deal, right? But now I'm like, whoa, you did that. So I write it down. I can do this, even though it was one step at a time. It was hard to finish school when I had a newborn, but I did it, and I did it one step at a time. So write down those things. Write down those things that even if it took you 10 years to get to it, you still did it. And why are we writing down the things that you can do? Because think about what makes you trust another human being, right? What makes you trust another human being is that their decision making is sound. Right? What makes you trust another human being is that you can trust what they say and do, so they're right. They're walking in rightness. What makes you know that they can do what they say that they're going to do, that they have action to back up what they're saying? It's because you've seen them do it before. So you're trusting their past abilities and actions. It's the same way you trust yourself. I can make a decision because I have. I know what is right because I've known in the past. I can do this because I've done things in the past, and every step of the way, even if it was a long and arduous path, I kept going. And then the bonus is trusting that there is no danger. This is probably the hardest one because your anxiety will tell you that there always is. I'm walking into a space where I don't know people. There's danger. People are going to judge me. People are going to think this about me. People aren't going to talk to me. I'm going to get left out, right? That feels like that. But if you trust yourself to make a decision and you've made the decision to be there, you trust yourself to do what is right, and you thought that this was the right place for you to be, and you trust yourself that you can do things even if it's in little increments, then you should trust yourself that you made the decision to be in that space. It's a right decision and you can do it, even if it feels socially frightening at the time. Even if you're scared, it doesn't mean there's danger. Much like the child that I was talking about in the beginning. They're scared of the dark. It doesn't mean that there's danger. All the danger is in their brain. So when you feel like there is danger, you just rely on the other things. Oh my gosh, this is going to happen. Hold up, anxiety. Slow your roll. I can make a good decision. I have been right. I am right now, and I can do this even if I feel fear. That's why you still hear speakers who've been doing this for years get on that public speaking platform and they tell you that they still have the little bouts of fear before they walk in. They don't let that overcome them because they know there's no real danger. What's the danger? Somebody might snippet their speech and say something negative about them. They're going to do that anyway. My goodness, I've seen the greatest acts of kindness on social media, and you go in the comments and people are annihilating the character of that person, right? It doesn't matter what you do, somebody's going to say something negative about it. There's going to be a ton of other people who are going to bring out the positive thing. So if you're in that space today where you're like, my anxiety is driving me nuts, you're getting on my nerves, and I want to get rid of you, I would encourage you to do this activity. I promise you that I've done it on several occasions when I fell back into the hole of having more anxiety than I had trust. And I was able to flip it around by understanding that the more I tapped into the trust that I have for me and the trust that I have for God, that I would be able to not live in that space of anxiety. That's when I started to overcome it. So if you're in that space today, I would encourage you to do the things that I've said, but also reach out to me directly. Look me up on all social media sites as Carrie Nicole _, and I will absolutely help guide you through that process. If this video was helpful for you, remember that knowledge acquired is selfish, but knowledge acquired and shared with other people is the thing that's going to break them free from the bondage that they're experiencing as well. So if you would go ahead and like and subscribe to my channel and share this video, I would appreciate it, and so would they. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.